TRUCKTalk. I'm your host, Tyler Christensen, and today I have with me Joey Grasso, owner of Thompson Northeast Insurance, Northeast Title and Tag, and DOT Compliance Services, LLC. Welcome, Joey.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tyler.
Absolutely. So for the viewers today, we had a little mishap in our previous session. Why don't you explain to the viewers what's happened to you today and how a tractor trailer was involved in your life?
Yeah. Ironically, we got on here, we were ready to go, and we discussed the questions and things like that, and the power went out. So we had to postpone it a few minutes. And I go outside, and there was a tractor trailer that actually hit a telephone pole and knocked the power out of my office. So they're not my client, luckily, but no one was hurt either. So that's good.
Yeah, it is good. Proof, though, that truckers are involved in our everyday lives, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, let's go back to your organization. So I listed off 3 different entities there, but why don't you tell us, what your organization includes and how you service the industry in various capacities?
Yeah, so I've been in the title and tag business for basically my entire life. It's a family business. It's essentially a privatized DMV. We have a contract with the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, and we are able to offer vehicle registration, titling, driver's licensing services to the general public and to businesses like trucking companies. My family's been in the insurance business since 1970. And I formally joined the company in 2013 after I graduated from college. I started selling personal auto insurance, homeowners insurance. I did a bit of commercial property insurance, and I noticed that we had a lot of trucking clients currently for our title and tag business who needed their IRPs completed, which is their international registrations for every single state. I figured it would be convenient for them to come to one place to get their truck insurance and their tags at once. So I began to sell trucking insurance, and what I found out quickly was that the markets were very narrow, and if I wanted to write business with trucking companies, I would need to either have an exclusive market that's competitive, or I'd have to do something that gave me a competitive edge. And that's which led me to form DOT Compliance Services. DCS is a full service compliance firm that helps companies who want to start new set up their company and assist them with their current companies with regards to federal and state requirements such as IFTAs, 2290s, and random drug testing. We currently have 13 locations throughout 7 counties in northeastern Pennsylvania. We have trucking clients with our compliance side of things throughout every single state. Our insurance agency is licensed in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and Florida, and we continue to grow. We're looking at opening up 2 more locations at the end of 2022. And we're actually going to be introducing a new business, a medical examination center that conducts drug and alcohol screenings, along with DOT and OSHA physicals.
Great. Definitely the definition of a one-stop shop.
Yeah, we try to make it really easy for our clients so that they can focus on driving and focus on booking loads and things like that.
Absolutely. Well, if you're an insured in the Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, or state of Florida, and you're seeking new services, you can contact Joey. We'll have his contact information below this video, as well as his LinkedIn contact information, so you can reach out to him and his team. All right. So let's get into the fun questions. I always like to start, every individual always has something that's on their mind. This is a crazy world, certainly the last few years, and the insurance industry is always exciting, especially in trucking. So what keeps you up at night when you're thinking about the trucking insurance industry in today's world?
I would have to say what keeps me up at night are, the liability limits. There's one side of me that says don't raise them because this is going to put a lot of people out of business. Premiums are already high, and if we increase it, they're just going to go up. But the minimum requirement according to the FMCSA, is $750,000. Now, 9 times out of 10, my clients, they have $1 million. They don't have just 750. Brokers want $1 million, shippers want $1 million. So normally it's $1 million combined single limit. And like I said, the minimum is 750. Now, but the thing is that with $1 million, settlements are rising. Things are getting more expensive, and something that concerns me is that when I have a truck driver going down the road and he's involved in an accident that leads to a fatality or something not as bad as a fatality, but someone is they lose a ligament or something like that, that could lead to higher verdicts of over $1 million. So we try to always push, maybe an excess policy of another $1 million, or we try to bump up the primary from 1 million to 2 million. And we run through these scenarios with our clients so that they are aware of, what is happening in our industry. So I would have to say what keeps me up at night are, the liability limits.
Absolutely. Fair enough. I mean, protecting assets is a challenge, but as you mentioned, I mean, we're seeing more and more nuclear verdicts out there, and what the solution is for that, I don't know. But is it going to get better anytime soon? Probably not.
They've proposed. I know that Congressman Matthew Cartwright, actually from my district here in Pennsylvania, has proposed a $5 million minimum limit for truck drivers. I mean, $5 million, that may be a bit excessive. I could see $1 million. I'd say let's go to $1 million. Everyone has it anyway. They're paying for it. Make that the minimum $1 million. But $5 million is it's very high.
Are you finding in the current environment and over the last few years that you're seeing the excess prices rising, and is it more challenging to place that coverage?
Well, yeah, definitely. I think that we actually just did an excess lines the other day, and we had to go through Lloyd's, and that was just $1 million. That was just an additional $1 million. They wouldn't take we couldn't double up on the primary. So sometimes we'll go, okay, we can do $2 million on the primary, but the requirements with the contract, they wanted that excess $1 million, along with the GL and everything else there. So yeah, I mean, it's figuratively $9,000 for $1 million excess lines policy, give or take.
Yeah. We're seeing, when you think of a per unit price these days, it seems that the excess pricing is higher than what the primary pricing used to be, years before.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, your primary is between 6 and 12 annually, and that should include your cargo for 100,000. If you add another 8 there, you're at $20,000 a year in insurance costs for one truck.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads us into our next question. The industry is certainly evolving, and with that comes advancements in technology, whether that be lane assist, dash cameras, etc. But we continuously hear about, the up and coming autonomous vehicles versus manned trucks.
Mm-hmm.
So in your opinion, how do you see the industry changing? How long is it going to take? And have you, as an agency owner, been approached by risks that include vehicles that have autonomous features or functionalities?
So a completely autonomous truck means the driver doesn't touch the wheel. The truck drives itself the entire time. We have not been approached by anyone who has that type of technology. I'm not even sure if that's legal right now. We have spoken to some insureds that have had the opportunity to work with Volvo, who has had some autonomous features, driver assist. You have to keep your hand on the wheel, things like that. It would vibrate, the seat will vibrate, things of that nature. So it's more like a driver assist. Personally, I can't imagine an 80,000 pound bullet going down the road with no one behind the wheel. It sounds crazy. I mean, I'm not really too much concerned about the technology making the mistake. I'm concerned about, somebody driving a private passenger vehicle making a mistake, cutting somebody off or slamming on the brakes really hard or something like. I mean, that's what's going to result in accidents. And technology can only do so much. If you have someone behind the wheel that's at least has their hands on the wheel, but the vehicle is somewhat autonomous, you still have that human nature to hit on the brakes or to make that decision of, I could swerve here. Like, that's fine. I'm able to swerve. There's an opening there. There's a median I can swerve over to on it. I'm not going to injure anyone and it's not going to be catastrophic. So my answer to that is I just don't see it happening anytime soon where there's just trucks with no one behind them. The infrastructure is not there. Our shippers, terminals would have to be changed completely. I mean, it would cost so much money, so much time, and by the time you get there, when you put in all the work, there may be something new. So I just don't see it.
From wearing a company underwriting hat, we think of consistently how do we evolve as the technology's coming. Certainly there's manufacturers out there that are pursuing this type of technology, building this type of technology, and as we think from a company perspective, how do coverages change? When does the transfer occur from auto liability to products liability? And as you think of the 1 through 5 levels at this point of autonomous vehicles, we're already seeing those level 1s and 2s out there, from a commercial capacity, as in, the Waymos and, public transportation, but it's coming, it's coming, how fast it's going to happen. But to your point, there's a lot surrounding the needs for autonomous vehicles, and it's certainly going to be some time before it's complete and we've got it right. All right. Always a fun question. So as we talk about your crash earlier in the call, and we had to start over, what's maybe the craziest claim that you've ever had to deal with, and what was the outcome?
Well, luckily, our claims are very low. I could say that. Thank God. Fingers crossed.
Knock on wood.
One of the most craziest ones was probably I had one of my drivers get hit head on by a drunk driver. And thankfully, my driver, he left the scene without a scratch. So that was just, it was tough because you get a call and it's on the weekend and it's at night. And it's the driver's girlfriend, I believe, spouse. And they contacted me and said he got hit by a drunk driver and I wasn't sure what was going on. And I mean, we have a certain relationship with our clients here that we try to deliver the most excellent service. So I consider all my clients, an extension of my family, and so it was kind of nervous, but I was happy to hear that he left the scene without a scratch. So it was good.
Unfortunate whenever there's a loss of life, but always good when anyone can walk away from that type of accident. So
absolutely.
Good to hear. All right, keeping on the claims and cargo, the weirdest cargo you've ever had to insure?
Nothing too weird. We did have one of our clients haul the wings to airplanes, major commercial jetliners, which I thought was really cool. But not one of the weirdest, but one of my most interesting, I guess. There was a crowd who had monkeys near me who escaped, but that wasn't my client. I mean, that would be a weird cargo, is monkeys.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you if you had a hard time placing coverage for the airplane hauler, but I would assume it would be even more challenging to place it for monkeys.
Yeah, monkeys, and they were monkeys that I believe cosmetic companies were using for testing, and there was an accident, and the monkeys got loose, and Danville, Pennsylvania, that's where it occurred.
No, Google that, folks. There's got to be something out there.
Yeah, it is.
Well, certainly we're both part of this conversation today because we're both members of the Motor Carrier Insurance Education Foundation, and we've certainly had a great face for this organization for many years, and many of our existing members are going to know him extremely well. But let's move on and talk a little bit about Tommy Ruke. So as we are trying to approach new members and bring more and others into our organization, if you had to introduce Tommy Ruke to new members, how would you introduce him?
The simplest way of putting it is that if you want to sell commercial trucking insurance, then Tommy Ruke is your god. He knows it through and through. He's the best. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's written policy forms for Canal. So this guy, he knows the business very, very well, and he's been in it for very long time.
He does know the business, and one perk of being an MCIEF member is you always have Tommy at your disposal for answering any and all questions. We'll post the link below called Ask Tommy, and at any point you have questions regarding coverage or where to place a risk, you can reach out to him directly and he'll respond, and I'm sure he'll have the best answer for you.
Mhm.
So we didn't talk about this, but how many years have you been involved with the Motor Carrier Insurance Education Foundation?
So I want to say this is my 4th or 5th year. So I've been to the annuals every year except the year of COVID. We did that one virtually. I've attended Orlando, and this year I actually attended the first year West Coast in Arizona in Phoenix. And yeah, it was. I mean, it's definitely helped me phenomenally. I'll tell you really quick that I have a carrier in my agency now that I represent and that has made me different from my competitors that I would not have if it weren't for MCIEF. So that alone right there has been, has done phenomenal for us.
Yeah, and for the viewers, when we talk about TRS, TRS is a designation obtained through the Motor Carrier Insurance Education Foundation called Transportation Risk Specialist. And, as those of you out there that write multi-lines that possibly may have your CIC or CPCU, the TRS designation is geared specifically towards the transportation industry. And to Joey's comment, if you have that designation, you're known as an expert in this industry, and there's only one way to get it, and that's through the MCIEF organization.
Exactly.
All right. So, the MCIEF, it provides a lot of advantages, certainly continuous education as we continue to evolve as an organization. We talk about, trending issues, what should be presented at conferences, but what's one thing in the trucking insurance industry that you wish you would have known 5 years ago that maybe you learned as part of the organization or you just learned through experience?
So you'll learn over time what coverage, how this coverage reacts, how that coverage reacts, and what this type of risk needs versus what this risk needs, or if you have someone that's doing hazmat or cooking oil or something like that, they need a pollution policy. You'll learn all that. And that's not something that I wish I knew 5 years ago. I mean, as a risk approaches, I learn it. There was no time when if I knew this earlier, I would have made the sale. I make the sale. I figure it out. But the most basic thing to know is that you're not just filling out an application and hitting submit. There's a lot of people that think that dealing with commercial insurance is just completing the application, hitting submit, but you really need to know how to paint the picture for underwriting and know what they're looking for to sell the risk. I used to always just submit an app, and then the underwriter would come back and ask me 100 different questions. And now that's very rare. I don't receive a quote after my initial submission. No, I normally receive a quote after my initial submission without any questions, because I've realized what these underwriters are looking for. I've realized that I need to paint that picture. I need to explain to them exactly what this applicant does, what they're hauling, where they're going, what their experience is, things like that. I mean, you have to show them the driver. You have to say he's worked here for X amount of years. This is what he's been hauling. This is what he plans to haul. This is his shipper. This is how he's going to get freight. Things like that, because they want a profitable risk, right? They're here to make money, and at the end of the day, you have to paint that picture, because they don't know the conversations that you're having with that applicant. All they know is what you put on that application. So it's important to really lay that out for them and paint that picture so that they understand.
Yeah, I love that example, because here's the reality. We're all human. And as an underwriting director, we consistently talk about, the characteristics of a risk and having a strong narrative to understand the story behind what's happened. Why do we have so many drivers with limited experience? What happened in this large loss? Have their travel lanes changed? All of that information is so key, because certainly the historicals technically predict the future. I mean, advanced analytics these days are built on what's happened, and what can we learn from that and what can we predict's going to happen down the road. But there's nuances to that. So a strong narrative for any underwriter is great because it not only tells us, one, that the distribution system we're working through knows that risk and that they're committed to help not only make a sale, but help that risk evolve in the areas that they may have opportunities, but also tell us their backstory. So I like that example. What doubts or objections did you have possibly before you joined MCIEF? Maybe you didn't know a lot about it, or maybe even talk about how you learned about MCIEF and got involved.
I didn't have any prior objections before joining MCIF. I did my research. I figured this, it looks like a good organization. I looked up Tommy Ruke, and I read a little bit about him as well. It's a great group. It's growing. I believe it's up to guys like us, younger professionals, to continue growing the foundation. And like you pointed before, when underwriters see that TRS designation and they know what it means, they know you've put in the time to learn how to underwrite these risks, and that alone is worth joining.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we both could talk about what we've gotten out of MCIF, and you certainly have, but, what's the one thing that you think maybe the Motor Carrier Insurance Education Foundation could provide, when we think about what's happened in the last 2 years with COVID and we talk about trending issues, what more do you think there is to learn about the commercial industry that could come from MCIF?
Just keeping up on the industry and what's happening. I mean, for example, like the ports, right? These ports in Los Angeles and New York, New Jersey, places like, I mean, they're getting bottlenecked right now. You can't get in and out of them. You can't get freight in and out. So, that's one of the industry, that's something that's happening in the industry right now, so that when you have someone approach you that's a new risk and maybe they say, oh, I'm going to do intermodal at the ports, you want to fully vet them and make sure that they have the proper shippers in play and things like that, so that they're going to get consistent freight and they're going to be able to handle that freight as well. You don't want to write a risk. You don't want to be a retail agent, at least, and write a risk for $20,000 and then get your commission, and then 2 months later they cancel. That could hurt. So things like that, which keep us up to date on the industry. Continuing these courses, these online courses are really, really helpful for me, at least. I mean, I try to do one or two every quarter, just so that I could keep up on current trends in the industry and things like that. And also the information that they send out in emails. They send out little articles here and there. Tommy always does. It's a 10-minute read and it helps, keeps you up to date.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for our conference committee members that are watching this video, we'll take note of those potential topics for future sessions. This is certainly a relationship business. You talked about that a little early on and how your organization tends to your clients, but talk about that a little bit. We're going to a conference here in a few months that's bringing competitors together. So retail agents, wholesalers, companies, and putting us all in one room. And most of the year we're competing against each other, but we all come together in one space, and just talk about that a little bit, and what that relationship looks like, and when we're all there, how united this organization truly is.
The conferences are great. I honestly believe they're a bit short at times, because we only have so much time to cover all of our CE requirements. So possibly conducting some breakout sessions in the future would be very helpful. I know that there's many people across several industries that attend these conferences, that include tech companies, insurance companies, underwriters, MGAs, brokers, retail agents, and trucking companies themselves. And I think that there would be some value if it was broken up into smaller groups, and you can kind of talk amongst that group, introducing yourself, what you do, what your current role is in your company, and possibly work together in the future, or refer that individual to somebody else. There's tons of things there. Networking is really, really valuable, especially when you're at these functions, because there's people from, like I said, all these different industries and from all across the country.
Yeah, It is, it's definitely an opportunity to gain new relationships. But you mentioned CE, and I want to highlight that as well. That one benefit that comes from our annual conference is the 12 hours of CE credit that's supplied over the course of 3 days, starting Wednesday afternoon through Friday. And it's certainly a facilitated learning environment. But as I mentioned, Joey added insurers. Trucking risks are welcome. Retail agents, wholesalers, managing general agents, companies. It's just a common place for us all to gather and share ideas once a year. So he also mentioned that I'll call out that this is the first year we've hosted the West Conference in Scottsdale, Arizona, or I believe it actually was in Phoenix. But, as this organization has evolved, we've been able to split out and host the West Conference and talk about that a little bit. I wasn't able to attend this year, but how did that conference compare to what you've seen down in Orlando?
The conference in Phoenix was really good. There was a lot of people there, great turnout, awesome facilities. The courses, the teachings, things that they came up with to go over were very informative. I met a lot of new people. There was actually quite a big turnout from people just in Phoenix that have never been to an MCIEF conference before, so that was nice. And it definitely has a future to be out there. I think that having the two conferences a year, one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast, is not only beneficial to our current MCIEF members for travel purposes, obviously, but also to bring in new members. It'll attract new members. It's easier to attend, and yeah, I think it was great. It was awesome. One other thing I want to point out is that these conferences are not, and I did mention that there's other industries, but I think these conferences, the most value they add in certain circumstances are trucking companies, larger trucking companies. Send a safety and compliance person there or operations person to these conferences because they'll learn so much about the industry and what these insurance companies are looking at, and I'm sure it'll help.
Absolutely. You mentioned about being designated to the trucking industry, and I'm glad you called that out as far as trucking companies bringing in those individuals. But, compared to other industry conferences you've attended, how do you compare MCIF to others, whether that even be, overall insurance, P&C related? It doesn't have to just be trucking, but how does it compare to other industry opportunities?
It's a great conference. They bring in the right people, definitely. The speakers are awesome. They bring in carriers, which is very, very. It doesn't always happen. You don't always have multiple carriers at one conference. They bring in underwriters. They bring in attorneys who have dealt with these type of nuclear verdicts. They bring in trucking companies, large trucking companies. I mean, they bring in some really good speakers, and it's very informative. I mean, I've learned a ton from just attending those conferences.
Great. Well, to close this out, this is, again, I want to come back to that West Conference. The West Conference was designed to bring in new members. Historically, our memberships have started from Midwest to East Coast. We were trying to grow our membership base on the West Coast, so we're really excited to host the West Conference and that it went off without a hitch. But I'm going to ask Joey, for those that aren't current members that are seeing this video, what's your final words of advice for those individuals?
Join immediately. Honestly, don't waste time. Join, get involved. Go try to see Tommy live in a small setting, teach a course. Gives you the time to ask questions and realize how valuable he is, not only to the insurance industry but trucking in general. And get moving. Be proactive, not reactive.
Absolutely. Great words of advice. Well, thanks, Joey, for sitting down with me today. Can't wait to see you in Orlando as well as some of our viewers. If you see either one of us at the conference in Orlando and would like more information, please reach out to us. Both of our contact information will be posted below in this video. But otherwise, I'll thank Joey, and we'll see you all in Orlando.
Thank you.